S-a născut în LA, da? în California, e absolut superbă. Cei care n-ați văzut-o vă recomand, o să vă îndrăgostiți pe loc. S-a născut în LA și a crescut sub influențele sporturilor extreme. Coasta Californiei de Sud e plină de personaje interesante, de sportivi, de ciudați, dar în sensul frumos al cuvântului. Adăugăm și influențele culturale de acolo, adăugăm și influențele muzicale de acolo. E absolut fabulos ce se întâmplă. După aia, același personaj care urmează să ne vorbească în câteva minute ajunge în US Army. Da? Asta după ce este expert și masterat în economie internațională. Toate acestea l-au dus și către coaching. Este Director of Chapter Development în cadrul ICF, International Coach Federation. Mă bucur foarte mult să îl avem astăzi aici. Îl invit pe scenă pe Matt Varney. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Varney.
Great. Hello, good morning. As we just spoke about, I am Matt Varney. I'm the Director of Chapter Development for the International Coach Federation. Wanted to take a few minutes to tell you a bit about what we do as a global organization of 30,000 members, professional coaches around the world in 140 countries. We represent this continued conversation and development of professional coaches. Do we have any coaches in the room? Oh, coaches. I know you two. What about managers? How about managers in the room? Right, very good. So the relationship between managers and coaches is something that we are exploring going forward here as it develops and as it grows. And what I wanted to talk to you about today is research that the ICF has done in the past year with the Human Capital Institute in North America. Human Capital Institute, if some of you are familiar, is an organization, a global organization that's focused on the continued development of human resources and the people resources that the organizations absolutely thrive on. So this conversation that we have developed over the last 3 years with HCI has led us to this most recent study about how we continue to develop a coaching culture within our and with our managers and leaders within organizations. So the research, a bit about the research, we had 879 survey responses, and it's interesting how coaching skills are being used in organizations today and how that's developing. We've been traditionally studying this transformation and the practice of coaching in organizations, but the utilization of coaching by managers and leaders within the organization has, we've seen a dramatic shift and a dramatic increase in the level of what's being done within organizations and how managers and leaders are using coaching themselves. But how good are these coaching skills that are being used within organizations? What's the level of training? Who are these people that are utilizing coaching within the organizations? So that's a focus. Our respondents for the survey showed a really large response of leaders using coaching skills. So that kind of changed the perspective and what we want to look to focus on as we continue this conversation. So what is a coaching culture? And that was something we looked to define very early on here. There's been a large conversation over the last 20 to 30 years about what a coaching culture is and what that brings to organizational success. In our survey, we created an index to define what a strong coaching culture includes. In the strong coaching culture we employ, the employees value the practice of coaching, and that's really critical. The employees understand what coaching can bring to the relationship and they can bring to them personally. Senior executives also value coaching as the people who, of course, are the ones signing off on these budgetary asks and the resources needed to build a coaching culture. The senior executives must also value the coaching. So we have this collaborative effort, we have this uniform idea of what the coaching culture can bring within organizations. The managers and leaders, internal coach practitioners, they spend an above average amount on their weekly time on coaching activities. And something that you find time and time again in this conversation within organizations about building coaching cultures or coaching activities is this scarcity of time. And no one has enough time, do we? No one has enough time for anything. So this is really intentional. You have to be intentional in developing this culture, that the time is a valuable resource and that's provided for. Managers and leaders must receive accredited coach-specific training. As with anything, practicing is the key to success, and the level of training that coaches and people utilizing coaching skills within organizations is really critical to the value that it brings. Coaching as a line item budget, as we spoke about with the senior executives being having buy-in from your senior executives and the value of coaching, they must be budgeted, it must be resourced appropriately. And all employees within the organization have an equal opportunity to receive coaching. This is something that's unique. Traditionally, you've seen coaching being approached as an almost punitive practice, as an opportunity to improve senior leadership, engaging only executives. But what we're seeing now more and more within organizations is coaching reaching all levels within the organization, that frontline managers are receiving opportunities to engage in coaching and also training to supply coaching to the direct reports. So this is drastically changing the conversation. The percentage of employees who, and within this survey, one of the questions was how engaged do you feel? Do you feel highly engaged or somewhat engaged? And putting these resources together for those who have represented themselves as highly engaged or somewhat engaged, the ones who represent this definition of a strong coaching culture within the organization, we see a drastic increase in the amount of engagement that employees feel. And as we know, engaged employees are much more productive and much more, they advance more through the organization, they contribute more to the organization, and they develop conversations themselves that drive ultimately the success of the organization forward. With the high level of engagement, we're also seeing the stronger financial performance within organizations. So this high level of engagement and the way that employees feel about their relationship with their work, the relationship with their managers, the relationship with even their high level of executives within organizations contributes to an above bar or on par financial performance for the organization. So those of you who are engaged in conversations with your senior executives about developing coaching cultures and introducing coaching into situations where it is not there, it's not represented fully, sometimes this justification of the financial performance of the organization is something that translates very well. As people are looking at adding additional budget lines, as they're researching what additional resources may be involved within the organization to support a coaching culture, the promise of a financial return on this is something that translates across all levels of the organization. Something very useful within that conversation, and something we see an increase in as we continue this engagement with the organizations with strong coaching cultures. Now, the coaching impacts, on top of having a strong bottom line and see this financial impact, the coaching impacts touch all levels within the organization. And as we've seen through the research, this is something that's very consistent with those who are hitting the markers of a very consistent, strong coaching culture within the organization. We see improved team functioning, we see increased engagement, we see increased productivity, improved employee relations both within the teams and externally. and faster leadership development. So what the key to this last piece here, with 36% represented within the survey, the advancement of the employees who are engaged within the coaching culture, they become leaders themselves. And within that community, within the community of the workplace, additional leadership that's coming from within as it supports the teams as they connect, strengthen the organization. They contribute to this financial result on the end, and they also see increased levels of engagement within all levels of the organization. Coaching impediments, as we spoke to, one of the contributing factors to an unsuccessful engagement within a coaching organization or an organization that has a strong coaching culture, this lack of time. Overwhelmingly, almost 50% of respondents say that they would love to have a coaching culture. They know it's important to have a coaching culture, but they just don't have the time to have a coaching culture. The lack of accountability for using coaching skills, the inability to change for command and control leadership style, as we've seen traditionally within business, this top-down leadership that we know is not as productive as it could be, is really critical to impeding the possibilities for what coaching can do within organizations. Lack of budget, short-term focus, limited support from senior leaders, and the inability to measure impact are all impediments to creating coaching cultures within organizations. These are not insurmountable impediments, though, and that's something very critical to focus on. These are things that can be changed with a high degree of focus. In your intention to create a coaching culture within an organization, these things can be adjusted. Now, as we talk about modalities within organizations, there are several ways to introduce coaching and to support a coaching culture within the organization. We've talked about the managers and leaders using coaching skills, and this is a new modality, a relatively new modality that we have a high level of focus on. We're seeing this conversation, this population grow, is that these are managers, these are traditional frontline managers, these are traditional leaders within organizations. They would never, if you were to ask them in an elevator, if you were to ask them what they do, they would never tell you they're a professional coach. Coaching would probably not be the first or the top three things that they would tell you that they do within their profession, but it's actually one of the core skill sets that they're utilizing in these many different roles. Now, what we're seeing in this managers and leaders using coaching skills conversation has made us incredibly happy that these are not just managers and leaders that are attempting to coach their employees. They're not attempting to coach their direct reports with any degree of support. They're not just attempting just to step into it without much provision. Managers and leaders using coaching skills these days are now exploring professional coach training to a high degree. They're exploring individual credentialing to certify themselves as professional coaches, but this is not their primary focus. This is not their job. Internal coach practitioners and external coach practitioners are the way that coaching has been introduced to organizations in years past, where you bring in an external coach or you employ someone full-time who is a coach to develop this coaching culture. As we see this exploration of managers and leaders using coaching skills, these are the people who are already internal to the system of the organization, and now they're simply being prepared in a greater sense to provide this coaching and this higher level of engagement to their employees. So focusing on the managers and leaders using coaching skills, we wanted to get very close to the conversation about what we know about the managers and leaders using coaching skills and how that's different from what we've seen traditionally in organizations. What's critical in understanding who these individuals are within the organization is why they're using coaching skills and why they've engaged this at such a higher level. Overwhelmingly, we are seeing a response of enhancing performance or enhancing professional growth as leading the cause for introducing these development of coaching skills within this level that we've not seen before. Additionally, what's interesting in a response to build trust is something that's unique from why executives explore coaching. Executives explore coaching typically to develop their own personal skills, to develop their ability to do their job on an executive level. As we explore managers and leaders using coaching skills, it's very much to develop more of a relationship with their direct reports. It's more of a relationship with their teams, and it's more of a connection within the system and developing trust within those connections to enhance the teamwork, to enhance the communication. All of the responses that you see below are based on this additional layer of trust that engaging in coaching relationships brings along with it. The coaching competencies for managers and leaders, the International Coach Federation has pursued a series of consistent coaching competencies as we evaluate coach training, as we evaluate professional coaching, that these are measured against and these are connected with. And the coaching competencies for managers and leaders all show up in connection to these established coaching competencies. Situations when managers and leaders are using coaching skills are specific to this level of performance, and they're specific to these layer of engagements between the managers and leaders and their direct reports and their employees. Managers and leaders using coaching skills often engage these equally between performance review sessions, but also in direct day-to-day conversation. So what we've seen in traditionally is the HR and team members learning and development, the response rate is 46 to 47% in these development conversations with employees. The managers and leaders who are using coaching skills, we're seeing a very high level of coaching engagements in these everyday interactions, the day-to-day interactions with the employees that are developing these relationships, developing trust, and developing performance levels within their teams. I think what's key here to recognize as well, and the unique difference, is that when you see the learning and development, the HR representatives, these unscheduled one-to-one conversations, which we know don't happen as frequently within the workplace, so there's much less opportunity to engage in a coaching relationship. 24% within those connections between HR, between learning and development and the employees, is just not a very high frequency of engaging and to expose the employees to coaching and what that could bring to the conversation, and comparatively to look at managers and leaders who use coaching skills in their day-to-day, these unscheduled one-to-one conversations that happen all day, every day. 72% are seeing a very positive response in coaching that's engaged in this conversation. And as we spoke to a few minutes ago, the critical nature of training in anything, that we seek to do well, and anything we seek to really maximize the potential of, especially within an organizational system, is training. Training is actually a high focus, and high level focus. And as we've seen in the continued conversation with managers and leaders and developing these coaching cultures within the organizations, this is a unique focus within those organizations to pursue and to achieve for their managers so that they can maximize the potential. In response to our questions, the managers and leaders using coaching skills, they feel it's been instrumental. 87% within the organizations that represent what we have defined as strong coaching cultures, 87% feel that the current training for managers and leaders using coaching skills has enabled them to develop this at a higher level of potential. The opportunities for developing coaching skills is ongoing beyond a set time frame of professional training. The coaching credentials, peer coaching, community of practices, mentor coaching, providing additional training, and coaching supervision are all additional layers of continued professional development that the managers and leaders who are using coaching skills and the people who are engaged within these coaching cultures can continue to train and develop beyond completion of a training program. So this continues to grow the relationship, it continues to grow the ability and the functionality of the participants within the coaching culture to continue to grow this layer of responsibility within the organization. And so through the survey and through respondents of almost 900 individuals of organizations with really strong coaching cultures, the things that we have learned and what we know is reaffirming this development and this growing population within organizations. Our questions initially were to how do we identify these modalities? How do we use a mix of the modalities? How do we identify have the employees and leaders who value the practice, what are the triggers to this and what are the identifiers within this so we can really measure these pieces. The response to all of these pieces are a change in mindset as we see within the development opportunities rather than remediation, and that's a unique focus shift away from the opportunities of what coaching can bring to the organizations. It's more of an opportunity for continued development at all levels, rather than this remediation at simply an executive level. And what's critical in all of the layers of this, as coaching transcends from the executive level down to the frontline managers and to the employees of the organizations, is that all layers of the system understand what coaching can potentially bring to it. This is a developing conversation within organizations. It's a developing conversation as we learn more about what the opportunities are for this system. And it's not one that can readily be reported out on just yet. It's really early in the process to understand what this can bring or what the fullest potential it can bring to organizations. But what we do know is consistently that this is enhancing the connection between managers, it's enhancing the connection between the executive levels and all the way down to the frontline managers and those who are participating in the day-to-day functionality of the organizations. And so as we share these slides with all of you afterwards, there's an opportunity to connect with this research. It's extensive and it's continually evolving and growing as we continue to perform these studies and study how the engagement levels within the organizations are developed through the addition of coaching cultures and the opportunities that present itself for the managers and leaders to develop the culture within their teams. Thank you very much.